Israeli forces withdrew from the Palestinian city of Jenin on Tuesday night. Reuters witnessed a convoy of vehicles in the dark leaving the city, signaling an end to one of Israel's largest military operations in the occupied West Bank in years that left several people dead. People in the city's streets surveyed the rubble and debris left behind by the light of their phones. Many of them had been forced to flee Jenin's refugee camp during a series of drone strikes and gun battles. Israel's army says the operation was aimed at destroying militant infrastructure and weapons in the camp. This man says his shoe shop was burned down in the fighting. He says it didn't contain any weapons, but was rather full of merchandise. He adds its destruction was a sacrifice for the resistance. What did Israeli leader Benjamin Netanyahu gain? This man asks. He only damaged things. The man says he also lost a grocery store and everything is gone. Power and water supplies remained cut off in some areas after bulldozers plowed up roads looking for improvised bombs. The Jenin camp has been the focus of a wave of violence that has swept the West Bank over the last year. The Israeli operation in the city was launched with a drone strike on Monday. Over 1,000 troops were deployed. At least 12 Palestinians, 5 of them fighters, and 1 Israeli soldier had been killed. The Palestinian Health Ministry says around 100 people were wounded by the fighting, though it's not clear how many were militants and how many were civilians. Israeli officials maintain there were no civilian deaths from the operation. There was further escalation on Tuesday, with Palestinian Hamas claiming a car ramming and stabbing attack in Tel Aviv, where 8 people were hurt.
Email exchanges from inside the BBC, they talk about the risk of violating Indian laws. It's easier to rake up the freedom of speech debate, but does it give anyone a free pass to knowingly violate the law? America supports India because it needs India's support in return. And India is working with the US because it suits India's interests. This is how geopolitics works. Last night, he diffused a crisis with his defense minister. But today, Netanyahu was confronted with a new problem. His cabinet seems to have rebelled against him. The UK is looking at the Indian subcontinent to fill its coffers. That India seems to be negotiating from a position of power, like a partner and not a former colony. The US and Russia are dangerously close to an armed conflict. This year, 2023, New Delhi will be the capital of global diplomacy. For a country as diverse as ours, with 88% of the population illiterate, it was a very big deal to write a constitution, and that too, the world's largest. Meanwhile, if we may, here's a Republic Day gift from India for the BBC. A list of suggestions for the BBC for their upcoming documentaries. Number 1, the Kohinoor and the colonial loot. Number 2, an outdated monarchy and unhealthy obsession with the royals. Number 3, racism in 2023. We're waiting.